Hi, this is Barb Crowley, and welcome to Metaphysics, A View Through the Veil. Today we're talking to Deanna Gloyd. Deanna and I work together at For Heaven's Sake in Denver, and you can always get us, either one of us here. But if for some reason we're not available or you can't get hold of us through For Heaven's Sake, we will post our email and website and everything where you can get hold of us. Deanna is an American intuitive energy healer, Akashic Records expert, and psychic medium who has spent over 15 years empowering highly sensitive individuals, empaths, and spiritual seekers to reclaim their energy and transform their lives. Today, we're going to talk about relationships, empaths, boundaries, and dating. Hey, Deanna, thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate your being here.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome.
It'll definitely be fun. So, how did you become a psychic? How did this happen? What broke open your soul kind of thing.
Well, I like to say that I was born fully loaded. I came
Hmm.
in with the gifts, and I didn't know because when you do you, everything you do is normal.
Hmm.
So I remember as a young child, probably 3 or 4, I would walk up to people in the presence of usually my mom, and I would look right at them and I'd say, "Hey, this is like four years old. You have a problem with alcohol. Why don't you quit drinking?"
She
Okay.
must have loved that.
Oh yeah, I usually got the hand over the mouth and the apology, and I'm like, "But what? What?"
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
that progressed, and when I'm going to second, third, fourth, fifth grade, I made a friend with a girl who actually protected me on the playground
Hmm.
because I knew things about people I wasn't supposed to know, and socially, only these girls could know this, and nobody else
Yeah,
could tell. And who
yeah,
told you? And then they'd want to beat me until seriously, kids beat me up until I would tell who told me.
yeah, yeah.
And so luckily I had, by the grace of God, I had a woman that stepped in. She's still friends with me today. That was like, no, that's not happening.
Oh,
So then
good.
yeah, exactly.
I
And so
know.
then, yeah, because it was challenging. But I mean, it was me. So I
Hmm.
just thought this was normal. So then, progressing quite a bit further down the road, I started working, when I was like 20, 21 years old, and I got in positions where I knew things that were going on within the company and I knew
Hmm.
things about people. And the people that worked with me recognized my talent, and I really
Hmm.
didn't. Again, it was normal. So
Right.
I would have one of the hiring managers that would call me into his office and he would say, "I want you to sit there on the chair in that corner while I interview these people." And I'm like, "Why?" He said, "Just
Yeah.
do it." And so I would.
Hmm.
And he would interview them and then they'd leave. He'd shut the door and he'd go, "What do you think?"
Yeah.
And at that time, I was at an entry level position and I'm sitting with the highest level position manager. And I'm thinking, "Why are you asking me? I'm a peon,"
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And whatever he would push me, "I want to
Hmm.
know what you think." And then something would pop out of my mouth that I couldn't control about how I felt about that person. And he would write it down.
Yeah.
And later, I asked him about it years later after I was no longer working there. And he said, "Well, you always knew, and it would always come true." So
Hmm.
I was like, "Okay, great." Well, then I was also a member of a church that probably some people that I attended that church with now will listen. And in that church, I would have prophetic dreams. And I would go to the minister. That's what you're supposed to do. And I'd say, "Hey, I have this dream. Here's what I dreamed about. Can you help me with it?" And the answer I would get is very much placation. Dreams sometimes seem real.
Mm. Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
"These are prophetic dreams." This
Hmm.
was about me. One time I had a dream about, I was thinking I was 21 or 22, and I just really didn't believe anymore in this religion I've been raised in.
Right.
And so I told God, I said, "If you really exist, prove yourself to me. I'm leaving this church and I'm headed, down a different road." And like that night or the next night, I had a dream, but it wasn't a dream. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
woke up
They
and
do look
uh,
different. Yeah.
exactly. And I saw two dark shadows on either side of me. In the bedroom I was sleeping in at the time, the window with the blinds was on the right hand side. So when the shadows would come in, it would be just usually on my right. But I saw like shadows standing over me, and
Mm-hmm.
it scared me. And so I'm like, I closed my eyes, pull the cover up like a kid, and I heard hissing, like a bunch of snakes and hissing
Oh,
and just really
oh, I wouldn't have
heaviness.
liked
It
that.
was
Yeah.
awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I felt like this like a contact lens, like I think it's concave was over me. And
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was pressing up against that, but it couldn't get to me. And it just
Wow.
freaked me out. And then
Yeah.
I closed my eyes. I'm like, take it away, take it away. And I don't know if I was awake or asleep or whatever. But then when I woke up in the 3D world, it was gone.
Mm.
I was scared for days. I slept on the couch.
I
you
believe
know,
you. I would have done the same. I would have been terrified. Yeah, without a
well,
doubt.
then
Yeah.
when I finally got the chutzpah to go back and sleep in my bed,
Mm-hmm.
I woke up in another quote unquote dream with that same bubble over me. But this time, as I came into awareness, I heard the most beautiful uh, choir, a cappella,
Wow.
absolutely breathtaking choir. And I was like, wow, this is great. Now, here's the cool part. This is the part that the ministers weren't real happy about. So then I'm laying on my bed and I'm feeling that, above me. And then I feel myself rising up out of my body. And I've had no training at this point. I don't know anything
Right.
about metaphysics, nothing. And
Yeah.
I feel myself rise up out of my body, go past the veil, and I feel like I'm with these beings and they're singing, almost like a Gregorian chant, but it was so beautiful, a language I didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so at peace. And I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. And do you remember in the old days when they'd shove people in a phone book, a phone booth, and you press, get all the faces pressed, that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Like these were all anyway. So I said, I'm in this space, and then I turned around and I can see myself sleeping. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking down on myself in the
So it was
bed.
a true out of body
Uh-huh.
experience. Yeah.
And I said to myself, if this is what it's like to be in heaven, I don't want to go back. And when
Yeah.
I said
Yeah.
"buh," the next thing I know, I spun around, I saw the ceiling, and I was slammed back in my
Mm.
body, and I jolted on my bed and woke up.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, "Nope."
Yeah. Not happy. Not happy. Wait, I
So
want to
that's
vote again.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
that so that's when I went to the ministers to talk to them about it, and that's when they told me sometimes dreams seem very, very real.
Mm-hmm.
But I remembered the question I asked. I was doubting.
Right.
So then, because I had been in this church a long time and they had us very steeped in learning the Old Testament, the New Testament, and scriptures, and stuff like that, I started talking to the minister about the scriptures where various people in the Bible had visions and
Mm-hmm.
dreams, and it says right in the Bible, "I had a dream."
Right.
They didn't like that too much.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
you were
God
brought
doesn't.
up in a Christian religion.
Yep,
Was it an
very. Yep.
extreme Christian?
I don't want to say yes, I don't want to say no, but it was a Jewish Christian church. So we believed in the Old Testament and Old Testament holidays, but we also believed that Jesus had come and risen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we kept all the Old Testament holidays.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. And had a Saturday Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Very kept. But anyways,
Oh, so it was a real blend.
yeah, so the real blend,
Yeah.
but very, very strict. And so anyway, they didn't like what I was telling them
Mm-hmm.
about, I'm quoting the Bible, and then they tell me, well, this one particular minister said, well, God doesn't talk to people like that anymore. And
Now
I'm
he's
like,
telling you what God does and doesn't do, and
yeah. So
Catholics
my
were like
question
that
was,
too. We'll tell you,
yeah.
we're in touch. Don't talk to him directly. You're going to bother him. I know.
So my question was, well, how do you know? And I've never been so quickly escorted out.
Mm,
People do the physical body language, stand up and saw me to the door and
right.
told me that, I needed to pray and blah, blah, blah. Well, go fast forward a little bit more. Now we're talking, I'm in college, non-traditional college student.
Hmm.
And then I wasn't as much in touch with the church because the leader had passed and they
Yeah.
put a new leader in place and nobody, not all the people wanted to follow him. So there began to be
Hmm.
divisions, in the churches. But
It
before that,
started to fall apart. Yeah.
yeah, it started to fall apart. And the original visionary of this church was a great man, very respected, but when he passed, things
Mm-hmm.
happen. So I began to have spirits come talk to me, which is for the first time is quite frightening.
Mm-hmm.
And they started telling me stuff. And then I was like, well, are past lives real or not? And that was a big hang up for me. And in college, I took, uh, what did they call it? It wasn't religious studies,
Yeah.
West Eastern wisdoms is what they called it, because it was a
Mm-hmm.
state school and they couldn't, you know. And so I was studied the Bible more in that time than I ever had before. And that's saying something, because I started reading a book called The Babylon Mystery Religion and the Two Babylons. And
Mm-hmm.
one of them has appendices and footnotes. And I started reading that when I was like 12 or 13
Yeah.
because I was curious. So
Yeah.
when I tell you I'm studying, it's huge. And so I was like looking in the Bible for past lives, and I couldn't quite find it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the ministers and I said, I think there's past lives. These beings are talking to me, blah, blah, blah. And they told me that the devil was talking to me and I needed to repent.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
told me that these spirits lived forever. They were demons and they lived
Mm-hmm.
forever. And so they would go back and look at other people's stories that they knew, and they would tell those stories to me, and it was all fake.
Yeah.
And that was really hard for me.
Basically, you had a Christian faith that said to you, fake news, that's fake news.
Exactly. But it was hard. And so I'd say,
Yeah.
well, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? Because I don't want these demons talking to me. I
Hmm.
want to be with God. I want to be pure of spirit and heart. And so they told me to repent. I said, okay, what does that mean? And they said, okay, for them, it was about fasting and praying,
Yeah.
and not dealing with the spirits anymore. Well, Barb, the funniest thing is, the more I fasted, in those days, I could fast 24 hours with just a little water.
Hmm.
And the more I prayed, the more the spirits showed up.
Yeah.
So I began to feel like I was cursed, that I was bad or wrong,
Hmm.
and I had no idea what was happening to me. And I just squashed everything. And it's been more than one time in my life where I've squashed my gifts, but if you've ever done it, when you try to control them or push them down, or put your fingers in yours and go la la
Right.
la la, I'm not
Right.
listening,
Yeah.
they eke out. It's like the lantern. Wherever the lantern's not dirty, the light ekes out
Yeah.
and you
You
can't
know what,
help
too,
it.
I find, okay, we'll be quiet unless it's important. Then we're coming through. Then it's, then we're coming
Yeah.
through.
Well, and so now you have all these abilities and these talents and these gifts that have been given to you, and your church is telling you bad or wrong. So eventually, because of all the breaking up going within the church and the different
Hmm.
segments going here and there, I said, I'm just done with this. And then, I was still going to college, and I was dating a guy, and, he's like, what's bothering you? And I told him, and he said, your gifts are in the Bible, the same Bible your church teaches out of. And I said, no, where are they? And he said 1 Corinthians 12. So I
I
went
don't know
home
what
and
that
I got
means.
my
I'm not real
Bible.
good religion
Okay, no worries.
wise. Yeah,
So
I
first,
failed Bible 101.
no worry. Uh, in 1 Corinthians 12, it talks about the gifts of the Spirit,
Hmm.
and it says that they're given to every man for the whole good of the whole body. So, like, one is the seeing of spirits, discerning of spirits, healing, prophecy.
Wow.
Basically, it's all the clairs.
Hmm. Right.
They're in the Bible.
Yeah, yeah. I might have to go back and read the Bible. It's been coming up a lot lately.
Oh, I feel it. It's just, to me, I just laugh and laugh and laugh, because here was this Bible that had the clairs right in it for
Yeah.
my gifts, and they were telling me bad or wrong. So, anyways, once I had that, I knew I wasn't crazy.
Hmm.
I knew I wasn't insane anymore. And so
Right.
then fast forward a little bit more, I'm getting ready to finish college, and was an English major and a religious studies minor, or Eastern wisdoms, as they called it.
Hmm.
And I really didn't know what to do with my life, because I didn't want my gifts exploited like they had been. And I wanted to make money. I wanted to support myself as a woman. And
Right.
I was like, I got to do something. And so my family comes from a line of educators. And so they said, you need a piece of paper with your name on it. It says you're smart. Never
Hmm.
mind, you're going to put yourself in eternal
Yeah.
debt for the school, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, erase, 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 a long debt. So
Hmm.
I said, okay, you know, what am I going to do? So I called one of my girlfriends and she said, oh, you love people, so do something with people. So I started looking at the colleges for to become a therapist, and I looked at Naropa University, and I looked
Hmm.
at UNC, and you know, if I graduated, what kind of a job would I have, and who would I be helping? And none of it resonated with me.
Right.
And so I said, you know what? I've always wanted to be a lawyer.
Hmm.
So I
Boy, that
decided
was a
to
big
become,
switch, you know. Yeah.
well, I like the law, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer. So I went to look, and they said you needed an English major in order to be a lawyer, which I already was in. So I'm like, okay, great, check that box. And then I thought, what kind of law do I want to do? And I wanted to be a water lawyer because water law is so prevalent in Colorado and the
Oh my
USA.
God, it's huge in
It's
Colorado or
huge.
out in the West, really.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
I thought to myself, if I'm a water lawyer, that means I will always be in need. I'll
Yeah.
never be without a job,
Yeah.
right? So here's the fun part.
Yeah.
So I decided to take a class. So while you were in, you know, the college and you wanted to do that, you could go take classes at other places for different kinds of law. They're introductory classes,
Hmm.
get credit, and you could find out. So I took this class and it was really good. And I did my homework and I was like one of the leading students in the class.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, this is what I want to do. And I felt so good and it resonated. And the professor came up and he said, I want to talk to you. And I said, what? He says, you're a smart young woman. He says, I know you're capable of anything you set your mind to, but I'm going to tell you right now not to go into water law. And
Boy.
I'm that kind of person, if you tell me no, I'm going to do it anyway. And so I
Yeah.
did. I asked him
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
And all of my sensitivities surrounded him at that moment because I wanted to know why he was telling me this.
Hmm.
And it resonated true. He said, in this area, people hire a water lawyer who's been around or family of water lawyers because there's been so much trading. And he said, if you're the person on the top of the hill and you have all the rights, you know, and the person at the bottom hill has less rights, you know, then the person at the top of the hill sells. He said, then you think it would go down, you know, the next person down, the next person down. He
Right.
said, but he says, no, he says, it's not how long you've owned the land. He says, there's other qualifications. So he said, you have to know that in order to help them because otherwise, you know, you'd get switched around because you don't know all the families. You don't know how long it's been in there.
Oh,
You don't
yeah.
know
It's a
all the ins
very
and outs.
inbred kind of thing.
Very ins and outsy, I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, because you don't know that,
Hmm.
he said, nobody will ever hire you. You'll be nothing more than a glorified clerk.
Oh, wow.
And I
Huh.
could feel that he was telling me the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, duly noted, thank you. Left his class, got my tick, you know, on my degree.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, great. Now what am I going to do? You
Yeah.
know, if I can't do that. And so I got my piece of paper, said I was smart. And I had been looking again in the Bible to all these gifts because as I'm going to college, all those dreams that I used to have came back again.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what am I going to do? And my sensitivities started opening up again. And I started having visions, like seeing things in the apartment I was living in at the time that quote unquote weren't really there.
Right.
And I just prayed a lot. I said, please show me the direction I need to go because I don't know what to do with all of this. It was very scary. So I went to see a woman. I don't think she's around anymore. She was a hypnotherapist. And so she took me back to a past life that had to do more with my mother. And
Hmm.
so that didn't really help. And then I paid another woman for a reading. And you know, going to college, you don't have too much money, so you save up. And she just told me, you know, she's like, you know, you have some gifts and you have some abilities, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that wasn't helpful.
Yeah.
Then I got to meet the Dalai Lama.
Wow. How did you manage that?
Well, I'm going to college at Colorado State University, and the guy that was in charge of the department for the Eastern Wisdoms knew him and
Hmm.
invited him to come see us. And so it was so cool because he set up a room with the Dalai Lama's translator, and him. And as students, we could come in one at a time and ask him a question, no more than 5 minutes.
Boy, that's quite the opportunity. Yeah,
It
that's
was
pretty
awesome.
amazing. Yeah.
So I sat down with him and greeted him, and I asked him what the meaning of life was. And I don't
Yeah.
remember his answer,
Yeah.
but I remember him talking to his translator, and his translator told me something that did not resonate, didn't make sense. I felt like it was just a standard one-on-one answer. And I
Right.
remember looking him in the eye, and I said, I want to know what the meaning of life is because I'm struggling and I want to know where the answers are.
Yeah.
He looked me right in the eye, spoke perfect English, and said, the answers are within.
Wow.
And I said, thank you very much. And I bowed, he bowed, and we left. I left.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
So the universe was trying to send me signals. God love the universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Go back to yourself. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I went home and and this is like, we're going through several months, weeks, it's not like one day after the next. And
Hmm.
I prayed and I said, please, 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 I want to see the face of God.
Hmm.
I want to see the face of God because I feel so lost. I'm getting this education, student debt. It's getting me nowhere. It's an English
Right.
degree. I don't want to be a teacher.
Hmm.
What am I going to do? So I kept praying. Well, one night I woke up in my two-bedroom apartment. I had a roommate that I didn't. And so at this time, it's just me in a two-bedroom apartment on the second floor.
Hmm.
No way in or out of this place other than a back, uh, uh, what do they call that? Balcony or the
Right.
front door.
Yeah.
So I awakened to hear what I thought somebody was coming in the front door.
Hmm.
And being a young woman by myself, I'm like, poop, I don't have anything. I didn't have a bat. I didn't have
Right.
anything with
Right.
me.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get up out of bed. This is so cool. So I go to put my feet on the floor, and my feet feel like they're caught up in the sheets, like I've been tossing and turning all night.
Uh-huh.
So I reach down, I grab the sheets, and I yank them and throw them up over my shoulder like a toga. And I peek down the hall and I'm looking, down the hall, and I see at the end of the hall a ball of blue light. I can only describe it kind of like a view through the veil, kind of like what you have behind
Oh,
you.
my
Just a
logo, huh? Yeah.
mhm, mhm,
Wow.
a blue light. And I'm like, okay, what is that blue light? And so my curiosity overcame me. So I'm creeping down the hall. And as I'm doing it, the ball of light goes from about the size of your fist to about the size of a softball.
Hmm.
And as I'm looking at it, the blue becomes translucent and I see skin tone inside there and I see two eyeballs in there. So basically, it was just my eyes and the nose, right?
Hmm.
And I'm looking inside of this thing and I see the eyes and I see the nose and I lock eyes thinking, oh, I'm going to see the face of God. And
Right.
when I look into the eyes of it, it was me looking back at me.
Were you looking in the mirror? No. It
No,
was into the blue ball at the end of the hall, right?
yep.
Yeah.
And that scared the crap out of me. And I
Hmm.
lost consciousness. And I woke up. This is the best part. I woke up in my bed with all the sheets and everything perfectly the way they were before I fell asleep.
Wow. Wow.
So I
Huh.
learned later, another intuitive said, oh, the sheets you were pulling on, you were trying to have an out of body experience and you hadn't been in a while, so you were tugging.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. But anyway, you were asking me how I got in this line of work. So all of that, just kind of, it wasn't a straight shot. A
Hmm.
lot of denial, a lot of suppression. And then I was really despondent because I finally graduated college. I'm living in the same apartment. I have no money. I'm looking for a job. At that time, nobody wanted to hire. The
Hmm.
world goes through cycles. And so I ended up taking a job at a collection agency
Oh,
that was,
yeah.
okay. And I was grateful for the money and the job. And I would come home every night and just cry. And so one night I said, I've had enough of this.
Hmm.
It seems like my life. I should name my book. I've had enough.
Right, right. It's not a bad name. A lot of people resonate with it.
In the kitchen of the same apartment. The kitchen's like it's like those standard apartments where you have the kitchen on one side and linoleum, and then you have your carpet and your living room on the other side.
Hmm.
And a lot of students that were traditional would leave and they were going to throw their plants out. And I'd, oh, no, 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 don't do that. So my whole living room is full of plants. Okay. And I'm standing at the sink with my back to the plants and I'm just angry because I was told by my family that if I got a piece of paper said I was smart, that I would have a job.
Mm-hmm.
And every company I applied to turned me down because I was non-traditional. So you're too old, or they would think I was young, just getting out of school because of the when you graduated back then.
Right.
So I'm doing the dishes and I'm angry. And anybody who's watching this or listening, I do not recommend this. This is kind of dicey. But I said, I'm so angry. I bit the lies. I swallowed the lies of this world. I swallowed the lies of the church, which told me if I was a good little girl,
Mm-hmm.
that I would marry somebody who would take care of me for the rest of my life.
Right. Right.
And I was good. And that person never showed up. Now I've got a piece of paper that says I'm smart, still have no money
Mm-hmm.
or limited. So I'm pissed.
Right.
So I'm doing the dishes. And I told God, I'm like, if you're real, you know what? There's this guy named Moses. He went up in the mountains and he saw a burning bush. So I'm going to call you out right now. And I turned around and I pointed to my living room. And I said, see all those plants over there? Pick one, anyone. I don't care which one, and show yourself. Because
Mm-hmm.
no God would do this to me. No
Right.
God would make me suffer like this. So show yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing a pattern here of how many times I keep saying?
Oh, yeah. You keep going back and saying, I dare you. Prove yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody watching or listening, please don't do this at home.
Yeah. Why not, though?
Well, I don't come what may.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a little risky, a little edgy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I turn around and I'm holding my towel, drying my hands. Now, if something had happened at that moment, I don't know if I'd still be here talking to you.
Yeah.
Just don't. But anyway, nothing happened. And I washed my hands. I said, see, you don't exist. And I went back, finished the dishes, blah, 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 blah. Well, anyway, it wasn't too much longer after that to how I finally came to do this job and
Mm-hmm.
seek it out. Because I woke up in the middle of the night again, so it's the middle of the night, and I saw a man, translucent although he was, standing at the foot of my bed.
Mm-hmm.
And he had, from what I could see, on a stereotypical robe, when Hollywood does
The toga stuff.
the toga stuff,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that, almost Star Warsy.
Mm-hmm.
And he had brown hair about down to his ears. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember what color his eyes were, but he was standing there watching me sleep. So I wake up. And again, you don't know if you're actually in the 3D world awake or if this is a vision,
Right.
but he was there and it scared me. And he said to me, come and follow me, and I will make you fishers of men.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, giving my Christian background, I'm like, I can understand it. But I was so scared that, again, like a kid, I pulled my head, the covers up over my head. I'm
Right.
like, oh, take it away.
Yeah.
And then I looked again and he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I don't know how many days later, if we want to go with nice numbers, 3 days, resonates. And this time had time to think about it. I'd asked for an answer. I'd received several answers, and I'm like, okay, I don't think anybody would be allowed to appear at the foot of my bed as evil.
Mm-hmm.
And so he came back and he reached his hand out to me and he said, come and I will make you the fishers of men. And being the smart person that I am, the smart but I said, and women? He just smiled and nodded his head and said, and women. And then
Yeah.
it was over.
Hmm.
And then I woke up. So after that, I'm like, okay, there's something to it. And so I kept the jobs that I had to keep in order to do the things I needed to do. I had
Mm-hmm.
another job after the collection agency, and I worked there for many years. And the woman that owned the company recognized my gifts too. And she would often have me do jobs where that intuition was needed. And
Mm-hmm.
in the meantime, I began to study something called spiritual response therapy. And that was taught by a man named Robert Detzler. Robert's no longer in physical body.
Mm-hmm.
And I began to learn from one of his teachers. And it was a very quick learn because I took the first course And I asked teacher questions. He said, that's second level material. And I said, well, you better start teaching the second level then. And he did.
Right. Yeah.
And from there, I became a great practitioner. I started charging people for that. And then I became a certified teacher.
Hmm.
And then again, just like with the church, Robert stepped back and then he passed. And so I was a teacher at that time. And then they scaled back the number of teachers they were allowing. So I was like one of maybe 9 in the
Hmm.
entire world for about a year
Wow.
teaching that, which is Akashic Records.
Hmm.
And then they kept changing things. And I was like, I just need to step out and do my own thing. And so I did.
Right.
And that's what I've been doing. Ooh, I'm getting cold chills. Whew, yeah, confirmation chills, and that's what I've been
Yeah.
doing. And I love it because the whole time I keep asking why. If
Hmm.
anybody wants to be spiritual, please be curious and keep asking God, Spirit, Source to show you stuff and it'll happen. Because I spent about 2 or 3 years in my office where I'd be preparing, the next thing for sales, and I would just get tremendous downloads, but I was awake, or they would work with me and teach me things about time and space.
Hmm.
So, an English major, and I have a thumbnail of quantum physics now that they've taught me so that I can
Wow.
understand how
Yeah.
time space works. Yeah, but I don't have that degree. And then they started introducing me to different angels and spirit beings that can help people in this time, in the
Hmm.
here and now. And I have a list of 57 different beings, and that's
Wow.
just the tip of the iceberg.
So you can call
So,
on any one of them. Yeah.
yeah,
All right. Let me
any
back
one of
up a
them.
little bit. And I want to ask you to explain what an empath is. I should have asked you that at the beginning.
To me,
Yeah, but yeah, if we can back
okay.
up to what is an empath? Because you
To
said you were an
me,
empath pretty much from birth.
yeah, exactly. So,
Hmm.
what it means to me is that I feel, sense, or know things other people don't.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay. So, like as a small child, when I would see a person that was struggling with alcoholism and they appeared good to the rest of the world, I could see it
Yeah.
and I could see
Yeah.
they were struggling, and
Yeah.
then I would know things that I had no other way of knowing. That's when my jobs, like the guy would pull me in to
Hmm.
do interviews
Yeah.
because he knew that I knew.
Yeah. So you could tell who was good, who wasn't good for the company. Yeah.
Yes. And just with like people in general, I just knew things like, in different circles I traveled
Hmm.
in, as a kid growing up and in high school. And I was, got chastised for knowing things. And who do you
Right.
know that's telling you? And it's like, how do you know? I don't know. I just know.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
could feel emotions, other people's emotions, really big time. And
Hmm.
that was really hard for me because if somebody was angry at me and they're throwing that anger energy,
Yeah.
I mean, it was like an explosion, like an atomic
Right.
bomb. And that was horrible. And then
A
I'd have to
psychic hit. Yeah.
isolate.
Yeah. That
Mm-hmm,
is, in a way, a psychic attack when somebody's throwing that energy
mm-hmm.
at you like that. So, how does
Yeah.
that
And I don't
work
think
for
they were aware.
you? How does that work for you as you became an adult and you started going into relationships? How did
Oh,
that
my
work
goodness.
out when you knew
Oh, my
way
goodness.
too much as you're getting
I
to
got
know
cold chills.
another person? Yeah. How did that work?
Well, the challenge that I had, or I don't know if I signed up for it or it was given to me, is
Hmm.
that I did have a narcissistic personality disorder parent.
Hmm.
And most of the empaths I work with now have had that,
Right.
and they're suffering from that still.
There's
And
a belief out there that not only empaths, psychics, most psychics have had trauma in their childhood. There's always, when you look back, there's always a trauma. I don't know if it's true because hasn't everybody had trauma? Yeah.
yeah,
So,
exactly. Everybody's
I'm
had
not
trauma.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what occurs in my mind to explain, to share a nugget or something people look for something to take away is that I asked my guide a couple of years ago, why would I choose to be born into a narcissist to a narcissist? That's
Right.
terrible.
Right.
And in my humble opinion,
Hmm.
the more I look at it, and I've had some therapy, it's full blown. It's not just a little, it's full blown narcissistic
Right.
personality disorder. And so my guides told me, my spirit guides or angels, if you prefer, told me you needed the gene pool.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dad's side of the family is all intuitives, even if they don't
Admit to
accept it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. My dad's sister could play the piano so well that people told her that when she played, they felt like they were sitting in front of Beethoven or Tchaikovsky or Bach or
Mm-hmm.
whoever it was, and
Right.
she could just flow that energy too. So I needed that gene.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side was the highly sensitive people. So I got the empath, the healer from one side, and maybe empath, but definitely a highly sensitive person. So I needed that gene pool.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I chose it. Well, there's another woman that I'm familiar with her work, and I started watching her videos, and she talked about um, the narcissist family cult.
Mm.
And as she was talking about it, I was like, oh my gosh. And I could put family members' names on what she was saying. And so
Yeah.
what made sense to me then was that there was something to this frequency. So being the research nerd that I am, I always want to know why. I started doing more and more research. And then my guides told me some information, which I Googled, and I found out there's one other woman who's in this business who's very well known, who had a small chart I'm about to tell you about. And I'm like, okay, so this is information that's being fed now to us to understand. What I was understanding is that your DNA has a frequency. So if we look at one end of the scale and we start on the very, very end of the scale,
Mm-hmm.
you have what's called a highly sensitive person. They don't necessarily have empathic qualities. They're just very, very sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And you start there, and then you come over and you get to empaths. Now, the 30 somethings these days are naming all the flavors of the empaths. It's a big scale, but they just gave me highly sensitive person, come over a tick, empath. Then
Mm-hmm.
you come over another tick, and fully loaded is what they call a star seed, because we came here with a mission. So
Right.
that's where I think I fall, self-proclaimed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Then you come over another tick and you get sociopath.
It's right next
Then
to Starseed.
no, you got your star seed, but you're going down a scale. It's like autism, it's a scale.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So on the other side of that is sociopath, and I'll tell you why. Then you come over another tick, you get narcissist, and you come over another tick and you get psychopath.
Mm.
The only ones, when I studied this and read some stuff, the only one that's born that way is psychopath. Their brain is predisposed, like somebody who might have a stroke and then their brain changes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who they are. And I'm like, well, how are all these other related? Well, when you're a highly sensitive person or an empath, you come out with all these beautiful gifts and they're just flowing from you and everything's great and lovely. And then people start saying, nope, I don't like when you do that. Nope, I
Hitting
don't like
back
when you
at
do
you.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you begin to go, if you will, into the fetal position,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you can't handle it. So what happens is those highly sensitive empathic people, the more they incur, the more they build up walls or disconnect. One young man today was telling me about how if you disconnect so much, your body doesn't respond anymore. So you just feel numb all the time.
Right.
And so if you imagine a wall being built up to just above your heart,
Mm-hmm.
that's my humble understanding of where a sociopath is. So they can still feel, sense, do the things that their empathic self can do, but they've cut off their heart.
Mm-hmm.
So when they behave sociopathically, they can't see they've hurt anybody else. So what?
Right.
Okay. Then if you take that up a little bit more and you keep building the wall because that person kept getting hit, you get narcissistic, which comes up over the head in my mind. This is all my research.
Mm-hmm.
And so you imagine like two little antenna on top of a bug coming out. So
Yeah.
narcissists can still feel, sense, and know, but they have that wall built up so high that not only did they not realize they're causing pain, but they're trying to see how much you can handle of their pain
Mm-hmm.
because they couldn't.
Okay. Yeah.
Now that's again my research, my humble opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you have that, and I forget where we were off, but that was a very important, somebody needed to hear that because it wasn't our point today to talk about. Oh, yes.
Right.
Okay. So
But it
the
does
reason I was,
impact your relationships
yes. Okay.
later
So
in
the reason
life.
I was
Yeah.
born into that family was to get that, that highly sensitive person. and maybe empathic. And so what happened is the person suffered what I was talking about, and they built up their walls. So by the time I got to them, I was treated in that manner.
Yeah.
And this, again, my humble opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that, when you have been raised by anybody that has a narcissistic personality disorder, you're going to find that you don't attach, or you don't allow relationships like an average person would who didn't have that,
Mm-hmm.
because you're used to being gaslit, eggshell walking, being devalued, having your self esteem taken from you,
Hmm.
and you will do anything you can to be loved.
Yeah.
Anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is how I entered dating world. I was willing to do anything to get attention, to feel loved, to feel valued.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not anything. I didn't give my cookies away because I was a good little Christian girl and I was told you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, that took me into a dating world. So, between my spidey senses, or my empathic ability to feel, sense, and know things, and going in what I call half cocked into the dating world, having been, searching for that love, and would do anything, I would pour myself into the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
all of me,
Right.
all of my energy into that other person, wherever their holes were, because I found I kept attracting people that were broken.
Mm-hmm. And that was
Made
because of
sense.
your background, because of your childhood. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because she was broken, so now I was broken.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
again, if she's listening, God love her, I've forgiven her, working through all this stuff. And, it's been a gift to me because I can now help others. Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of young women I find today are dating that have these spidey senses, but they're wanting that love so much and they're giving themselves away, and I don't have any safe boundaries.
And you work with a woman. You work, this is one of your courses, your classes and all. You work
Yes.
with women who are women, or just women, or women and men who are
I
dating
work with
and
mostly women, because what
yeah.
happens is mostly women are drawn to me that are going through this, because I believe once you've gone through something, you're
Hmm.
going to attract people that need help.
Right, right. That
The
yeah.
I do have a couple of men that I work with that had a narcissistic parent as well. The challenge is that I don't know, I can't relate to them because they're male. So
Hmm.
I can help guide them through recovery, but I don't have any books. Like, I have 2 books I give to women to read about narcissism growing up and how that affects you, but I haven't found any good books for men yet.
Hmm. And you
So I
teach
do help
them
them as
how to have boundaries.
absolutely. 2 things. One, you have to love yourself.
Hmm.
That's the biggest hurdle I found. And 2,
That's the
having safe
hardest too,
boundaries.
isn't it?
In my humble opinion, yes. And I keep saying that because I don't have any scientific studies or anything, and I don't have a PhD behind my name at the current moment. But I found that if you have safe boundaries, in order to have safe boundaries, you have to love yourself. And so when I was in therapy with a licensed therapist, he told me, he held his hands up in front of his chest, about 2 or 3 inches in front of his chest, and he said, "This is where I'd like for you to get your boundaries too," because I had none. And he said, "The first time you establish them," and he pushed his hands out towards me really far, and he said, "The first time you establish them, you might push too hard and people are going to react to that and they're not going to know what to do, but you're finding your space." And he was right, because the first few times I established the boundaries, it wasn't very eloquent. you know but yeah, you want to love yourself, because once you learn to love yourself, which is a huge hurdle, no matter what kind of a parent you had in your childhood, if you didn't feel loved, if you didn't feel valued, if you didn't feel nurtured, no matter what label you put on them, that's the first hurdle. Because if you don't love yourself, then how can you put up a boundary that says, no, I don't like this? So my current love, my current passion in my job is to help other empaths find their footing especially in the world, we're in right now, in the year that we're in right now. There's so much going on, and they may be feeling half cocked, half tilted. And now they're trying to live in a world that's just all reorganizing itself. There's so many, and so they don't know what to do, and they feel lost, they feel stuck. And I'm going to be a little forward. I was raised in a church that said if you were a good Christian girl, you'd get married and the guy would take care of you for the rest of your life. Well, when you want to be loved so much, you're willing to take breadcrumbs from anybody. That's usually narcissistic personalities. And you're willing to take that just to get some semblance of love. They will drain your energy, especially narcissists, sociopaths also. But they will drain your energy. You will become their narcissistic supply. You may have heard the term energy vampire. And if somebody's draining you, how can you stand up in the world today? And how, as a young woman, if you're not married or you're in a relationship, you might be exiting soon, how can you stand up on your own 2 feet and make the money you need to make to support yourself and or your kids if you have them? How can you do that? You're going to be willing to work 2 or 3 jobs and then your kids don't have a parent. And that really bites. So what
Yeah.
I'm doing, my first step, is reaching out to young women, and I've worked with them as young as 25 all the way up to 65.
Yeah. Yeah. And beyond.
And beyond,
Yeah.
to teach them what is happening in your dating life. How come you keep getting ditched? How come you keep getting ghosted? Why are the guys on the apps doing these things to me?
Mm-hmm.
It's because your energy is out there.
Right.
And they can feel it across a phone app.
Yeah.
And the saddest story, very quickly, that I have is one woman who called me and told me that her boyfriend, who she'd never met,
Mm-hmm.
only emailed,
Yeah.
was stationed overseas, recognize those
Mm-hmm.
red flags,
Right. Right. Right.
needed money to fly home to see her, to meet for the first time. So what'd she do? She sent the money.
Ah.
And
Ah.
I get it. I mean, because here she is older, she doesn't see any prospects for a relationship, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And so she did it.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, I'm going to tell you how to get rid of this guy. And she goes, but I don't want to get rid of him. And I said, do you want to keep paying money?
Yeah.
She said, no. So I told her how to get rid of him. And she did the simple steps that
What
I told her.
what'd you tell her?
Part of it is to write him and tell him
Mm-hmm.
that since he's the man in the relationship, that she expects him to earn money to take care of himself.
Right.
And if he can't do that, she doesn't want anything to do with him.
Mm-hmm. And that was the end of
Mm-hmm.
it, huh?
No, he wrote her back, and the first part was "Oh baby, please," and the second
Mm.
part was anger and start striking out at her. And
Right.
she said, "What do I do now?" And I said, "Block his email. Don't answer it anymore." It's simple enough. But
That is.
we feel so deeply, and we pour ourselves into that person. And if you can imagine a sponge,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a dry sponge, and you pour yourself into it, it's going to expand and get bigger. And when that person, that you poured into sends that energy back, it's like coming out of the pores of whatever they've had before.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, but I don't want to drink out of a dirty sponge.
Oh God, just the idea
You
of
know,
that is terrible. Yeah.
so when you're in relationship with someone else, you have to know that your energy and their energy becomes intertwined at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And what filters do you have up? That was the first way I started establishing boundaries, was I put up filters. So if you're crafty and you take the bottom part off of a faucet, you'll see that it has a little screen on it.
Yeah.
That's what I did. I put up a filter between me and them. And I asked the filter to filter out anything that I didn't want or need. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't.
So with, let's say, somebody coming to you who's not online with a boyfriend she's never met, not in the middle of a scam, but they're just out in the dating world, how do they deal? How do they function? When they're
Uh,
so in need of love that and they're seeing patterns of the same boyfriend over and over. How do they function in the world, in the dating pool,
yeah,
you
the
know?
dating pool. It's interesting you said the same person over and over again in
Yeah.
patterns. That's the first thing I tell them is pay attention and think back about your relationships because you're dating the same person over and over again, just a different face.
Right.
So many of the younger women and older women that are dating on the dating apps online, what they're telling me, which is going on in our world right now, is people have been being taken out of groups and tribes.
Hmm.
They're being segregated, if you will, into it's you and the phone or it's you and the electronics. And so your mind is there and it's not with being with your neighbors. And so I have so many young people that come to me, they don't even know how to have a relationship because they spent most of their time doing something else besides engaging with their parents or their siblings or whatever. And that's a sign of the times.
Hmm. So
So
that
if you're,
right now
if
it's
you're single,
online.
yeah,
Everything's online. Yeah.
exactly. So the first thing is to I tell them to get yourself a tribe.
Hmm.
Start meeting other women. Go hang out. There's something like meetup.com and they
Oh
have
yeah,
different things,
meetup.
you know.
Yeah, I've done a bunch of meetups. They're fun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that you begin to feel human again and
Hmm.
not isolated because when you're isolated, divided we stay what is it? Divided we stand and
No,
no, divided we
united we
stand,
stand,
divided we fall.
divided we fall.
That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's true for humans because humans vibrate. They have a frequency.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing is begin to look at what you like to do. And people used to tell me, "Oh, date yourself." And I'd be like, yeah, "Go pound salt. I don't want
Yeah.
to date myself. Come on."
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
I won't say that because I didn't like it. But what I will tell you is look inside and ask yourself, say your name is Sally.
Hmm.
Sally, what do I really like to do?
Hmm.
Do you like to go roller skating? Do you like to go to the movies? Do you like to go hiking? What do you like to do? That's the key in starting dating. Once you find out what you like to do, now you have something to take into the dating arena,
Hmm. Right.
something to take with you
Something to share.
other
Yeah.
than your physical body.
Right.
So you take that and then you could join meetup groups, or if you're texting in a dating app, you can ask them, "Hey, you know what? My name is Sally and I love underwater basket weaving. And last week I learned how to use bamboo.
Hmm.
What do you know?" And if
Yeah.
the guy doesn't know anything about what you're doing and
Hmm.
he's truly interested, he'll ask you at least a couple of questions. But I've
Yeah.
also found out that these young men didn't learn how to do social interaction either.
Hmm.
So a lot of them don't know what to say.
Wow.
So as women, you have to learn what an open-ended question is, not just a yes or no question.
Hmm.
And ask them questions and draw them out a little bit. And if they're interested in you, they'll ask you questions. They want to know what's going on in your world. They want to know more about you.
Right.
And that's how you get the conversation started. And when I did online dating, yes, I did online dating a couple of times. I had a rule, and my rule was I only will chat with you back and forth for a week, and then
Hmm.
we meet in person.
Yeah.
And I found what that did was it cut out, dare I say, it cut out a lot of married men
Oh,
that were posting single on the
yeah.
dating app.
Yeah.
It also cut out a lot of not well intended people on the dating apps because I would name the time, I would name the public place.
Hmm.
And then when I would meet them, almost instantly, because of my abilities, I could sense their energy.
Right.
Young women and older women only meet them during the day
Hmm.
at a place where there's lots of people.
Yeah.
Have coffee or soda or tea or whatever you drink. Do not have a meal your first time ever.
Yeah.
Because if you have a meal, then you have to engage for a longer period of time.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
have the coffee or the tea or whatever you like and you meet them, set your timer for 15 minutes, maybe 20.
Hmm.
Talk to them. You'll know almost instantly whether you want to keep going or not. And if you don't, excuse yourself. It's not rude or mean.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
that, Barb? Swipe to the right. I don't know. I don't do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I know I tried the dating apps before this. I don't remember the swipe thing, whatever. But I actually sometimes would leave before I even got coffee. It
Hmm.
was like, let's cancel coffee.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. But
yeah.
these are some of the things that I start women out with, and then I share more as we work together. And if anybody's listening to this or watching it and they're shaking their head, going, "Yeah, no, that," I'm letting you know, after almost, well, a little bit over 15 years of practice and sitting with at least 5,000 people one to one, listening to stories, and then doing it myself, I know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
And
Right.
if you're empathic or highly sensitive and you're looking to make that connection, the first connection you got to make is with yourself.
Hmm.
And don't be a chameleon. If he says, "Oh, I'd love to go fly fishing," and you don't know the first thing about a fish and you have no interest in learning, that's
Right.
not the person for you. And the other thing I will tell you that's really fascinating to me, now that I say this, if a man listens to this, they'll probably tell all their men friends, "Don't do this."
Yeah.
But one of the things I learned about men is the first time you go out with them, if you have a second date, you want to go to dinner. Now, one of my spirit guides said, tell people they can have a first date at a dog park with their dog if they have one. That's great.
That's a good
Um,
place. Yeah.
but again, it's like, I find a lot of people interview you, your first, women and men. When I was on the dating app, I had a man that I sat down at a restaurant with. He ordered tea, I ordered tea, and it was an interview.
Hmm.
It was literally like a job interview. And I'm like, I get that you want to go fast. That's not a relationship. Anyway, what was I going to tell you? Okay. So a man will literally tell you, you have to be face to face. You cannot be on your iPhone. You cannot be on Zoom. You cannot be on Facebook FaceTime.
Hmm.
You have to be in this person's presence, and not in a bar where it's loud, and not in a movie theater where you can't hear them. Face to face.
Right.
Man will tell you everything you need to know about him in the first date. Everything.
Wow.
Mhm.
Huh.
And when I found that out and I started looking back at my first dates, I was like, oh yeah, I can see that now.
Yeah. Why is that?
Well, men, that their brains are different. Their
Mhm.
brain chemistry is different than ours and how they think. And that's one of the things I teach in my workshop is how a man thinks, so that when a woman's dating, she can look for the signs and then choose to, move in or move out, energetically. But a man, most of them, the ones that are good, to date, and not narcissists or sociopaths, but the ones that are solid, I will say,
Mhm.
they are testing you because they want to see what you like and what you don't like, because
Mhm.
they know usually they're solid within themselves. They have their habits if they're older, they have their patterns if they're older. If they're younger, they know what they want. They may want kids, they may not want kids, they may want to, move from Colorado to New York. They know what they want,
Right.
and they're looking for a woman to fit in to what they want.
Mhm.
And so they're putting things out there to see how you accept it. Do you say, "Oh yeah, that's great, no problem," you know? And they do it so subtly that you don't recognize it unless you're looking for it.
Wow. Do you teach them to be empaths? Do you teach the woman to be empaths to feel too, or
I
is it?
I teach women that having spidey senses or being empathic is quite all right, no problem. The idea is you have safe boundaries,
Mhm.
because if you pour your entire self into some guy you just met on an app or 2 weeks ago, it's not good, because where are you in that equation?
Yeah.
With being empathic or highly sensitive and having those safe boundaries, you know what you want, you know what you don't want, you know what you like, you know what you don't like. And
Mhm.
that gives you power and to be your highly sensitive, empathic self, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the boundaries, it's like being in a bubble. And most people that are watching this have seen some variants of the Wizard of Oz and Glinda the Good Witch coming in the bubble. You
Yeah.
gotta have a bubble.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good. You need a
No
bubble.
bubble, you're going to be all over the place.
Mhm.
But it's
Right.
very interesting to listen to men the first time, and their body actions. how they treat you, um, how they respond to you. I dated a guy one time, and I like to talk, as you've discovered.
Mm-hmm.
We sat down, we actually met for a drink, alcoholic beverage. And then we decided we would go to dinner because we were enjoying and vibing and all that. And when we
Right.
went to dinner, it's a semi-quiet restaurant. He just did nothing but talk about himself the whole night.
Huh.
I hardly got a word in edgewise. And it was like, I should have stopped there, but I didn't.
Mm-hmm. Good
I
dinner.
kept dating him, and the world was all about him all the time. There was never considering my feelings, my thoughts, my emotions. It was just his way, and it was normal to him. And
How
ultimately,
about if the guy um, is putting his best self on,
mm-hmm.
so you're not seeing the real one, or is nervous. Some guys will be nervous and then just be talking about themselves all the time. And their core is not really that person. They're just don't know what to do and panic. Yeah.
Right. Now, the nervousness, I was reminded a couple nights ago that when men like a girl and they want to keep seeing her, they may not put their whole self forward because they're afraid if she sees it, she's going to run, and other women have run in the past.
Right, right.
That's valid.
Hmm.
So there's some sensitivity of knowing how to lean into that relationship. And again, that's what I do in my court, when I work with women, and also
Right.
this course I've got coming up. It's about when do you lean in and when do you not?
Hmm.
Because it's a dance. It's like the two step or the waltz. You have to know the dance. And
Right.
just because they're shy doesn't mean they're a bad guy. It just means that they're having trouble. And as a woman, if you can help them to step into to I was going to say the word expose, but that's not right.
Hmm.
If you can help them to reveal more about themselves or feel comfortable in their own space, then that's a guy who will consider you a great person to continue to have a relationship because they'll learn to feel more and more comfortable.
Hmm.
Not to say that they won't pull back. I've seen that before where the woman would say, okay, here's a space for you to feel comfortable. The guy stepped in, and then a couple days later, he didn't call her. He didn't text her. And she's like, what happened? Did I get ghosted or whatever? And I said, no, just give it a couple days. And
Hmm.
then he would reach back out because he was trying to process his emotions in his own self. And
Right.
if she had
Right.
kept texting and pushing, then he would have pulled away.
Hmm. And that's after you
So,
evaluated
uh,
that you want to pursue this, that you like them.
absolutely.
Yeah.
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 And that's why I said if you have one or two things that you like to do, like
Hmm.
for me, I know this can sound strange as a highly sensitive empath, but I love ice hockey. I
Hmm.
love hockey. A good hockey
Wow.
game. I used to have season tickets, and people are like, how can you stand that, with all the noises? I just love it.
Yeah.
So if I
Yeah.
was going to go on a date, I would invite the guy
Hmm.
to a hockey game.
Yeah.
Now he has something to watch that he may or may not enjoy, depending on whether you're into sports or hockey or whatnot. It's
Right.
something I like doing, and I will never quit doing it. I just, like recently, I haven't been other things going on, but I'll keep going back because I love hockey, and I don't want to give it up. It's not
Hmm.
something. It's a non-negotiable,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I
Huh.
take that forward, and he'll either enjoy it or not. If he could care less about hockey, but he's willing to go and sit next to me during a game, and have a beer or a soda or whatever, great.
Right.
But it
Right.
also gives you something to talk about, a talking point, so he can share a little bit more. He might not come out and say, I hate going to any kind of sports events, and I'd rather go to a scientific convention. He may not tell you that,
Right. Right.
but it's a talking point. And that's why
Yeah.
I tell my young ladies and older ladies, have a couple things that you want to talk about
Hmm.
and get them talking, because once they talk, they're going to let their guard down and they're going to come out a little bit more. And those
Right.
are the really good guys, anyways.
Have you ever come across a young woman that you say to them, "What do you like?" And they're nothing. I don't
Absolutely.
know.
Yep. Absolutely. It
Yeah.
happens a lot.
Yeah.
And then I have a series of questions I begin asking them about their upbringing and about their childhood,
Hmm.
because 9 times out of 10, I will find that young woman had a parent who was either abusive or neglectful.
Hmm. Wow.
Sometimes there's something called avoidant personality disorder,
Hmm.
and one of the parents will have had that. It's just about because they're a chameleon. They're trying to please the parents so much to get whatever they can. They don't know their own selves. they will literally like what the other person likes. And I know
Oh,
that there's
yeah.
at least two women that are listening right now. My guides tell me they're like, oh my God, that's me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because you
Right.
get with a partner and you do and like everything they do and like, and you lose yourself in that because
Mm-hmm.
you want to please so badly.
Right. Yeah. No, I've met people like that too, that, yeah, they just lose themselves. So,
So then I
do
get
you
time.
use your psychic skills and your empathic skills when you're working with these women? We'll go more with the woman. Do you use your empathic skills to also guide them?
Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing because when they come to see me, all that energy that they have in their energy field. So for those people that don't understand, I want to give you a little understanding. If you stand with your feet about shoulder width apart, one foot slightly in front of the other, and you stretch your arms out in a giant letter T and
Mm-hmm.
gently turn yourself in a circle, no following people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where your hands are going in that circle, that's your personal energy space. That's your bubble. That's your chakras. That's your auric field. That's normal.
Mm-hmm.
That is very normal, no matter what label you give it.
Right.
So
Right.
when you have that space, you're carrying energy in there from things you've experienced in this life, unless you release it and let it go.
Mm-hmm.
So when a woman sits down or a client sits down, oftentimes in their energy field, I can see things or feel things without any other senses, without having their guides talk to me, my guides talk to me. It's just there and I can feel it. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you have a balloon, a child's balloon, and you tie it to your belt loop, and then it's up here near you everywhere you walk,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I can
So,
feel that.
so you
And so
start there with that. Yeah.
sometimes it depends. I have so many different ways I can connect with people, but usually when I start, I want to raise the frequency in the room.
Mm-hmm.
That will help them feel more calm. And then I will measure the energy in their chakras, the major seven, not all 725 minor.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell them out loud, this is what I'm feeling. And it's amazing to watch their shoulders go from up where they're so stressed out to relieved, like, wow, you knew, and I didn't even have to tell you.
Yeah, yeah,
And then they feel when they're talking to me like I'm their best friend. That's what I hear a lot from my clients. I feel like you're my best friend.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's good though, because when out in the dating world, you want somebody whose hand you can hold. It's like, oh my
Absolutely.
God. Yeah.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
going back
Yeah.
real quickly to the women that have had some damage, with their parents growing up,
Mm-hmm.
when they
Or
go
other
for
relationships.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
when they're going forward in their relationships and they're not, having the boundaries, they're not able to, all that stuff. That energy in their energy field feels that way. And so I will often give them tools to feel more empowered right away.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's guys, here's one of the biggest mistakes, ladies. If you're listening, I want you to get out your pen and paper or whip out your notes on your cell phone. Here's the biggest giveaway of today. Never, never give your cookies away for the first 3 months you're dating a man.
Hmm.
And I can see a bunch of heads whipping back and forth. What did she say? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Is
You
that
can hold,
allowed?
yeah, you can hold hands.
Yeah.
You can give a kiss on the cheek or the forehead. But I'm telling you, if you want to know what a man's doing, if what his intentions are, where is he going, do not give away your cookies in
Mm-hmm.
any way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
No touching, no fondling, no full cookie course,
Yeah.
because that's an energy exchange that you're not ready for yet. And I see so many young women that get on these dating apps, they go out with the guy, they have the drinks, they go home, and they do the, what do they call it, horizontal mambo.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come to me crying, and it's like, why did you do that? Well, it
Right.
felt good at the time. Well, great. But now that guy knows that you're on tap anytime he wants it, and there's nothing else there. Men who are seeking a relationship want somebody solid.
Yeah. Yeah. That might be a hard thing to follow.
It can be. And sometimes the guys will push and they'll come back to me and they're like, okay, he's pushing me. He wants to know why I won't, this and that. And I'm like, okay, here's the bottom line. If you exchange bodily fluid with the other person, whether it's your mouth or your privates,
Hmm.
that's a frequency.
Hmm.
So you've now ingested that frequency, which gives you a propensity to want to be with that person no matter what.
Right.
And it's harder to cut that tie.
Hmm.
Plus, at the end of that 3 months, there's a physiological change that happens. And when that change happens, that's when the guy knows he either wants to move closer or he doesn't. And if a
Yeah.
guy ever says to you, oh, well, if you're not going to give it up, I'm out of this relationship, that is definitely not the guy for you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
And I've heard women say, well, if you don't give it to him, he'll go somewhere else. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And how about when the woman wants it though?
Well, that's a challenge because I keep telling them, don't do it. Okay, so here's the other way. When the woman wants it, my question to her is, if you're an independent woman and you have a bank account,
Hmm.
would you put this guy the first time you meet him, second time you meet him, third time you meet him, would you put him on your personal bank account with full access?
Mm.
And if the answer is no, no cookies.
No cookies. Yeah. Oh, that's
You
pretty
know,
good.
try it. Obviously, on this show, it'll be a way to get a hold of me. And if you try it and it proves not to be true, send me an email.
Hmm. Which, and actually, we're coming to the end. So, where can they email you and get hold of you? And when is your course starting? And keep in
Okay.
mind, this show will be out there a long time. So, you have to give, if you want to give a date, you have to put the year with it. But
Okay.
also,
No,
your website, they can always, if they miss this course, yeah.
yes. Okay. So here's what's going on. So my bottom line is I have been an Akashic Records reader, energy healer, for years. So that's
Hmm.
my claim to fame. And what I'm doing now is I'm shifting how I present that to the world and how I help because a lot of people don't know what records are. So
Right.
if you go to my website, it's tools, 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 multiple, of energy protection.com.
Hmm.
Okay. I'm going to be rolling out today is 2/5 of 2025. I'm going to be rolling out more and more courses to where you'll be able to go there. It'll say online events. Right now it's vacant. I only have one, but it'll be online events and you can click on it and come live, which I suggest. And
Hmm.
then, within a week, I'll be putting them up again, but they'll be recorded. But I'm
Hmm.
teaching people how to protect their energy through these tools, which all goes back to the Akashic Records. That's where it's at. And so the course I have coming up is for the lonely hearts or the not want to be hurt again hearts. It's on the 15th and the 16th of February 2025. And
Hmm.
it's aimed at women who are in the dating pool that are pouring themselves in and are getting ghosted
Hmm.
or dumped or
Right.
used or energy vampired or whatever, and they're like, I don't want this anymore. I'm so over it. I'm so done. I don't even want to date anymore.
Hmm.
So in this, I'm going to do 2 days of classes. The first day is a half day each day. And the half day, the first time that I do it, it's basically helping you to understand where you are and these cycles.
Right.
And then at the end of that, if you get a VIP ticket, I'm doing a full energy clearing for you on all of those frequencies, which Barb, you've experienced.
Right. Right. We
The
actually had a
specific
session
ones,
before we
I'm
came
similar.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's
It's
it's clearing levels.
fabulous. It's fabulous.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And what these clearings are aimed at different things.
Hmm.
So this one I'm doing for that'll be aimed at relationships and love. Different ones. There's a money one. There's a health one. There's a wealth one. There's all of them. So what I'm doing, what I'm offering is I'm teaching empaths, highly sensitive people, how to protect themselves. Like I said, we've got so much going on. So toolsofenergyprotection.com. On there's my social media. So if you click on Instagram, it'll take you to my Instagram channel, or you just type in my name, Deanna Gloyd, if you can spell it. And
Spell it for him.
it's Gloyd.
Hmm.
And when you get there in the bio, if you're doing it currently, there'll be a link, and the link will take you to the Transforming Your Love Life class. If you're on Facebook, it's under events. I don't have it publicly posted on my website. So if you really want to take it, you can send me an email at tools, TOOLS, of energy protection at gmail.com.
Great.
And if nothing else, you type Deanna Gloyd into St. Google or the Google search,
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
and I'll pop up everywhere.
Hmm.
If they want to have a one-to-one session. And what I'm going to do, Barb, for your listeners is I'm going to offer them something that I normally don't.
Hmm.
If they're listening and they reach out to me via email and they say, hey, I heard you on a View Through the Veil with Barb Crowley. If they send that to me, or they can private message me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, I will meet with them one-to-one for 15 minutes, and we'll talk about what's going on in your life. I won't charge you anything.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, this is what I see for you. This is how I can help. And if you want to engage, great. If you don't, that's fine too.
Okay. Now, do you have an end time of this offer? Because again, this can be out there in 3 years,
Right.
you
No,
know.
the yeah, exactly. The 15th and 16th of February of 2025, that's going to be limited. But again, once that course is over, within a week or two, I'll put it back up for sale under
Right.
courses and
But
events.
that's
And
a
so there's,
course. I mean, the free 15-minute
oh, the
session.
free 15-minute
Yeah.
thing. If they write me and tell me, unless
Okay.
I'm
Even in three
solid,
years from now or whenever?
yeah.
Oh,
Well,
okay. Cool.
unless I'm like, on the what is it, chicken soup for the soul on Oprah's show, and I can't book another person in.
Right. Right. Yeah, that fell
You
apart, that
know,
chicken soup or something. Something happened
yeah,
to that. Maybe
exactly.
the writer. Yeah.
Yes,
Hey,
exactly.
Deanna, thanks so much for being
Yeah,
on the show. I've really enjoyed it. I think it's a fabulous subject and a fabulous course. So,
thank you.
I encourage all you ladies out there that are dating the same person over and over and having the same experiences. You want to check in. Yeah, great. Thanks so much for
Yep.
being on the show.
All right. Mwah. Big hugs and kisses to everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.